Hi, welcome to Comics and Cosplay. I'm your host Ian from Saturday Morning Cosplay, and in today's episode, we're going to be doing a video review of DC's feature-length film, Justice League War. So while DC hasn't done a great job in their live-action movie department, nor their comic book story department, one area they've continually kicked Marvel's butt in is in the animation department. Over the last few years, they put out a lot of great feature-length films, including Batman Under the Red Hood and Superman vs. the Elite. So the first movie they're giving us in 2014 is Justice League War, which is the movie adaptation of Geoff Johns' Justice League New 52 run, which if you're unfamiliar, the New 52 was when DC decided to reboot its entire universe. What I basically like about this story is it's two stories in one. It's first an origin story for Cyborg, as well as a putting the team together as the Justice League and premier DC characters come together to fight off an invasion from their arch nemesis Darkseid. So let's start out with what I liked about the movie. First, I really liked the Green Lantern voice acting and characterization of the characters. They really captured the spirit that Geoff Johns wrote in the book, and it had more of the Ryan Reynolds attitude that we expected from Green Lantern and not the one we got in the Green Lantern movies. Next, what I liked about it was the amount of action that was in the video. Now this is partially a double-edged sword, which I'll get to in my dislikes, but it was a lot better overall in the movie. It showed the impending doom that the city faced, as well as the might of the heroes as they fought off the invasion from Darkseid, which was a lot better than in the comic book at explaining how he was ultimately defeated and sent back to where he came from. Next, what I found funny and really liked about the movie was how all of the male superheroes hit on Wonder Woman. Now at first I thought this was kind of goofy and didn't make sense, but then I thought about it and remembered I've been in a comic book shop when a pretty girl shows up and everyone hits on her, just like they did in the movie. Next and finally, I really liked the voice acting work of Shamar Moore as Cyborg. I thought he did a great job as the role and really brought about both sides of him being a conflicted hero as well as a star athlete. Next were the things that I didn't like about the movie. First is Wonder Woman and her characterization. I thought she was doing a bad Thor impersonation because she was constantly mystified and befuddled by the most simplistic things. She's a goddess, Amazon warrior princess who has a lasso of truth and is mystified by ice cream. Next, while I did mention previously, I did like that there was a lot of action in the film, I felt that there was too much at certain points and it took away from some of the character development, especially some of the great moments that Geoff Johns had put in the book, and I wish they had toned back some of the scenes of action and punching to let us get to learn more about these characters and their motivations. Next, what I didn't like about the movie was the Superman-Wonder Woman relationship. Now, every comic book fan knows that these two are now an item and the main couple in the DC universe, but I felt in the movie it was incredibly overhanded and kept constantly trying to remind us, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, these two are going to become a couple soon. I think it could have been done in a much more subtle way since this movie is clearly intended for much more mature audiences. Next, I had a few issues with Superman. Now, I'll totally grant you that these are a little bit nitpicky, but I did feel like that the way that they drew and his characterization in the movie, he came off as a high school jock, like he was the star athlete from Krypton U. And also, I like Geoff Johns' version of a more quieter, subtle Superman who has showed more quiet reserve and power and strength. Next, I didn't really like the voice acting work for Darkseid. I felt it sounded too digital and voice altered rather than just choosing someone who had a deep baritone voice that was menacing and imposing. Next, my final problem, what I ultimately think is the biggest mistake of the movie, is the removal of Aquaman for Shazam. Over the last few years, Geoff Johns has done a great job of making Aquaman a more interesting and captivating character. So why they decided to take him out of their flagship movie for the new year doesn't make sense to me. I do appreciate Shazam and like his story, but thought it would have been better served as a miniseries or an extra for the DVD. So you might be asking yourself, is this video for all ages or young kids? Well, I'd recommend against either because it seems to be much more of an adult-oriented film due to the excessive violence as well as crude language. It appears this film is for New 52 fans who wanted to see the first arc of the Justice League story come to life. So it wouldn't be a comics and cosplay episode if we didn't talk about the costumes, so let's get into it starting with Wonder Woman. While they didn't completely revamp the costume entirely, they made a couple of key changes that I'm not sure were ultimately for the best. First, they took away her iconic corset bustier and replaced it with a sleeveless leotard that goes all the way up to her neck. They added long blue opera gloves under her bangles and took away a few of the stars on the side. While this isn't ultimately a great look, I don't hate it, but I don't think it was the best that it could have been or necessary for the changes. Next, for Green Lantern, he also didn't receive a major update, but one key change was that they added these glowing shoulder pads that had the lantern symbol in them, which I thought was a pretty interesting change for the character. The final character to get an update to his costume in the movie was Cyborg. Now, I have to admit, I liked the comic book version better because he looked a lot more sleek and futuristic, whereas in the movie, I felt that he was really bulky and oversized. Plus, while I understand why he had the blue markings, I didn't think they were ultimately necessary and broke out the overall layout of his costume. So you might be wondering what my overall review is for the movie. I think this is something that is ultimately for the really big Justice League fan that wants to see the pages come to life, and not for the more casual DC or comic book fan. If I were you, I wouldn't run out and buy it today, but wait till you can snag it from a Redbox for 99 cents or when it goes on Netflix, since the movies go there almost instantaneously. And that's it for Comics and Cosplay. Don't forget, we're going to be at KatsuCon this February interviewing cosplayers for our upcoming KatsuCon video. If you'd like to be a part of it, make sure you check out our KatsuCon trailer video. Also, follow us on Tumblr and Twitter as I post regular convention updates as well as cosplay tutorials. That's it for today's episode. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on any future Comics and Cosplay episodes. I'm your host Ian from Saturday Morning Cosplay, and as always, I'll see you on the con floor.